want to write me a bad performance report?
This happened more than a decade ago, while I was still in the U.S. Army. As a sergeant, you would get an annual performance report written by your supervisor. And that was a big part of you getting promoted or not. This was your NCOER, Non-Commissioned Officer Evaluation Report. My direct supervisor, we'll call him SSG, Staff Sergeant Douche, did not like SGTLSCRX at all. He was constantly up our first sergeant's butt while I was looking after the lower enlisted in our section, trying to do what was best for them, even if it didn't make me look good. SSG Douche wasn't very good at the administrative side of his job, or any other side emo. And one evening I get an email from him stating something along the lines of, "Here's your NCOER. Sign it and send it back." So I read it and almost sprained my eyeballs. I'm rolling them so hard. It is the worst NCOER I've ever read, much less received. He was really taking a lot of liberties. And emo was not doing himself any favors by writing such bad stuff about my performance. Him being my direct supervisor and all. Well, there's a section of the NCOER where he was supposed to write the dates that he had formally counseled me about my performance throughout the year. Those counselings should support the performance he is writing about in the NCOER. Except he had never formally counseled me on anything that would involve paperwork, and him doing his job correctly. But oddly enough, there were dates filled in for several quarterly counselings that he supposedly had done with me. Cue malicious compliance. I emailed him back, requesting that he send me copies of the quarterly counselings that he referenced in the NCOER, so that I could better address my shortcomings that he had so clearly spelled out in the NCOER. He very quickly responded that he didn't have copies, but my NCOER was due in the morning, so I needed to just sign it and send it back to him so that it wouldn't be late. I told him I would be happy to make some corrections that I felt better represented my performance, send it to him for review, and then sign it so that he wouldn't have to turn it in late to our first sergeant. Otherwise, I would have to wait for him to come up with the quarterly counselings for me to look over before I'd feel comfortable signing. Now he knew that he hadn't done the quarterly counselings, and even if he faked a few with dates that matched the NCOER, they wouldn't have my signature on them, and there wasn't a chance in hell that I would sign a negative counseling with a faked date on it. So he was stuck. Either admit to First Sergeant that he hadn't done his job all year but wanted me to sign off on a bad NCOER, or let me write my own NCOER and force him to sign off on it. Guess who has two thumbs and had a glowing NCOER? Kudos. If you know the military, it's not surprising and sad that this same thing happens many times every day. Pro move is to write your own performance reviews, which to do well is a many-day, few hours project that can be offered as a draft or sent last minute as here. If it's not on paper, it doesn't exist. Well done, op.
Excellent. Promote ahead of peers.
Crazy the unit let your counseling slide. Air Force has a similar system. It's graded 1 to 5. 1 being the worst of the worst. Court-martials, DUIs, things like that. 5 is the best of the best. I wrote my own for years until my last one before I medically retired for PTSD from an assault. My supervisor wrote it, and it didn't go as planned. She gave me a 1. I had never been in trouble in any way, shape, or form. I had one piece of paperwork, and it was a memo for record that she never put in my personnel file. And I never signed it. I knew she was doing it. I told her it wasn't going to get through but let her do it anyway. She had to explain to our shirt that she was giving me a 1 because to her I was never around. Didn't do my job. And didn't do what she told me to do. She had me and 2 other NCOs doing her job. So she could volunteer and suck up to our flight office, and I refused to do it because it wasn't listed in my duties or part of my duty title. And always a doctor's appointments that she thought I was making up. Thankfully our shirt had been in many briefings with the base mental health, my off-base doctors, and the commander about my PTSD and multiple hospitalizations. She ended up having to rewrite the whole thing in one night and told me I had to do it. I said nope. Per the regulations, I could not write my own EPR, enlisted performance report, and my supervisor has to write it. I ended up with a 4. About a year later, she ended up getting kicked out. She was given an Article 15 for favoritism while deployed and lost a stripe, making her over her higher year tenure. She also had to go home early on her deployment. Al-Udeid isn't a deployment, because she got knocked up by one of her airmen she was a direct supervisor for. Guess who has 2 thumbs and had a glowing NCOER? Wah. I hope the NCOER still reflected the lack of any counseling sessions if he was supposed to have been counseling you even if you're doing well. Dash. Had this happened to me in retail once. Manager in question hated me to the point we couldn't be left alone in the same room. He came out and admitted the store manager was forcing him to give me a bad review and he felt I'd rated myself accurately in my review, but he had to make it worse than I'd earned. Hatred continued after that, but I had more respect for him after that. Knew a guy when I was in the Air Force who, though he was a pretty lackluster airman, managed to pull this off because his supervisor failed to keep a proper paper trail. I love hearing stories like this. I had a SGT in training with me to reclass MOS and he knew the book. Guy was crazy smart too. Way smarter than the barracks cadre. We got busted for something you bust privates for and they punished the whole barracks as a group. On a Sunday. We also happened to have a SSG reclassing as well, and per regs you can't punish an NCO in front of enlisted at all. The SGT asked to see the order from the CO saying the NCOs could be punished as well. Something small, like police the grounds or something. Long story short, cadre SSG doesn't have an order. May have even faked one. I don't recall. And gets caught with his pants down. SGT used the CO's open door policy to quietly inform him that his cadre needed some cleaning. First thing I learned was to make a personal copy of everything. Anything with your signature and or SSN. Duh. But even the stuff with your name printed on it. Make it known you keep records. Be a pain about getting copies. You would then be able to provide a copy of a legit NCOER. Good or bad. Then when SSG douche pulls this kind of stunt, one SG already knows you're the guy that covers his ass. My section NCOIC was not a bad person. But after 20 plus years in the Army and not making it past E7, he was done putting up with a lot of things. Our WO1 in our section wrote him a scathing NCOER. Something along the lines of a 1 out of 5 across the board. After it was submitted, it was thrown out due to the fact that she wasn't supposed to be doing NCOERs and she personally had it out for this particular NCO. Another pro move is to request a counseling at the beginning of each quarter via text. Screenshot that, so that at the end of the year they not only don't have counseling forms they didn't do. You have screenshots asking for your counseling sessions. The worst they could do is write an average no-compliment fitness report. I hated NCOers. Sounds like SSG douche canoe is the one that got cancelled. I had a SSG do the same thing to me, but this was when I was ET Singh. I wrote my last 3 NCOERS before retirement because nobody really understood my job law. I once received an NCOER where they had the performance potential numbers flipped. Because my SSG didn't like me either. Not to get into it. But they flat out told me, write yourself an event-oriented counseling every day. At the end of your shift. Don't try to lie. I will be checking it against the duty log. Okay, guy. So instead of saying I was performing poorly, they said I was somehow performing better than my potential. I got that NCOER 9 years ago. And I still have it. Just so I can have a laugh every once in a while. Edit. Spelling is hard sometimes. Nice. Consider posting this in our military stories. Well played, sir. When you have them by the balls, their hearts and minds will follow.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Eracast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.